Okay, so we're going to get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Johanna Antonio. I am a CSM, Client Success Manager at Interfolio. I've been with the company just a little over a year, and that is especially important because my counterpart here also is kind of new to Interfolio. Take it away, Jason.
So my name is Jason Martinek. I'm the Assistant Provost for Faculty and Staff Development at New Jersey City University. And as part of my portfolio, when I began the position just a little more than a year ago, it was to take over Interfolio, but there was no continuity or context or training, nothing. So Joanna here has become my best friend, and we've kind of like grown up together through this process. And so we wanted to talk a little bit about our experiences today in terms of trying to get a system that in some ways had broken down at our institution back up and running and restoring faith in it. And I really couldn't have done it without Joanna.
See, this is why I like him. Just by a show of hands, how many people are somewhat new to Interfolio, less than a year or less? Okay, 2 years or less? All right, cool. Now, if you are a little more seasoned, that's okay, because there's nothing wrong with going back to the basics, right? Sometimes when you have a system, you've been using it for a while, you're kind of just used to using it repetitively, and so this will be good to kind of have a fresh start and kind of think maybe a little bit from the basics. So, as you can see, we're clueless to clued in, and both Jason and I could say we were probably a little clueless at the beginning, but we definitely got acclimated really quick. So what are the objectives? Well, like Cher said, ugh, as if, but we are going to show that you can recognize the common pitfalls, how to gain practical and easy to implement tips so that you don't feel so overwhelmed. Learn from real-life examples that Jason is going to provide, and it's pretty amazing what he's been able to accomplish in less than a year. Basically, one review cycle.
Right.
And most importantly, how to boost your confidence. So if you're brand new or you're still feeling a little iffy about Interfolio and the modules that you use, what can you do to make yourself feel more comfortable? So then, of course, the people who come to you and your customers, those faculty members, or even your executive leadership, you have that confidence to answer their questions.
And let me just say, in a period of a year, and probably some of you that have been doing this for 10 years, everyone still waits to the last minute.
Yeah,
right?
faculty
so there's always 11th hour assistance that you need to provide, and I don't know how you solve that one.
Yeah, if anybody has any clues to that, you can let us know at the question and answer period. Okay, so a couple of things here. What are some of the challenges you find as a new RPT user, or even any module within our Interfolio? What are those challenges? Well, navigating the interface, right? Sometimes it's just not always the most intuitive. Sometimes it can get a little confusing. Understanding your workflows and your approval processes, and that's coming from a lot of different areas. That can be the processes that your university mandates, or a union that you have to work with, or a faculty senate that you have to work with. And then how do you make those work in Interfolio? And with RPT, maybe you have some workflows that were grandfathered or given to you from a previous administrator. And as Jason had said, sometimes knowledge transfer isn't there, or maybe it's a little outdated. So then you're left with something that you're not quite sure what is going on. How to manage user permissions and confidentiality, obviously top of mind when it comes to a lot of these workflows. Troubleshooting technical issues. As a CSM, I'm here to help you. Things happen sometimes, and there may be a technical issue. What do you need to do to give me the tools to be able to help you figure out what's going on? And then building relationships. Building relationships is so important. Sometimes the person who had been there for a while had built relationships that you may not have. So how do you do that? Document procedures, kind of similar to the confidentiality piece, but how do you manage those documents? Where should they go in the workflow? And it could have changed since the last time you reviewed the process. Staying up to date. As you probably already know from our conference this week, changes happen and things get updated and enhancements are made. So how do you keep on top of that? and then also leveraging the tools. Even if there isn't enhancements and there's nothing really new, there's still tools that you can use to make sure that you're staying on top of the best practices. So why does it matter? So that was kind of what, this is why. You want to ensure that smooth faculty review, promotion, and tenure process. Maybe somebody, your faculty may be a little nervous because there's somebody new in the faculty affairs office, or you may not have that relationship built with them. So you want to make sure that as the new admin, you maintain that constant communication and the workflows. You don't want to have those delays that can occur sometimes. You want to know how to manage all of that. Optimizing central document management, again, very important. Where should it go? Why should it go there? Strengthening communication and collaboration. So one of the things that Jason did so well, and I'll let him speak to that in just a minute, is he did work with his union. And at first they were very resistant to changing the workflow processes. But over the past year, he's been in communication with them. He has built that relationship, and he has made the case to change the workflow. And they are now receptive to it, or somewhat receptive to it.
Well, it's part of a negotiated new promotions agreement, so it needs to change to reflect the new process.
So we went through what, we went through why, and now it's kind of a little bit about how. And he's going to detail that as far as it applied to his institution. But as a CSM, we always want to make sure that you have the resources that you need. We have a lot of available templates. We have help articles. As a new admin, or a somewhat new admin, or even somebody who's been in the system a while, it's always good to start with the basics or review the basics. So you kind of take it all the way back to the beginning and say, where did we start? Where did we end? Where are the pain points? What can we take away? Standardizing your data, again, something that sometimes doesn't happen as the years progress. Obviously, data can be hard to maintain. There can be a lot of data. But if there's a lot of data that doesn't matter, it may be extra confusing, and you may get wrong data. So maintaining that data is very important to avoid that chaos. Performing regular reviews on all of your workflows, maybe even getting a little bit of feedback from faculty or other stakeholders about those workflows may be a great way to start to say, maybe I didn't know these pain points, maybe the person before me didn't know those pain points, but they are very real to the people who use them. What can we do to make them better?
I'm going to add a pitfall right at the start here. And the first thing is have a continuity plan. There shouldn't just be one person at the institution who knows how to use the tool. It's particularly important, I think, for RPT because it's such a personal process for faculty members. I mean, we're literally talking about decisions around whether they're being reappointed, decisions around whether they're going to get promoted or tenure, and those are a big deal. And in terms of how our union contract is laid out, the only grievable thing that faculty can do is grieve the process. So if the process is a mess, it really opens you up to legal liability. Now, when I started taking over this, we had the issue of there having been loss in trust in the system. And so it was not simply about getting the templates up to snuff, but it was also about restoring and rebuilding that trust. And I think one of the reasons why I got the job I did in the first place is that I'm a consensus builder. I'm not the guy who's going to come in and say, it's my way or the highway. I definitely want to work with the stakeholders because even though we may disagree about things, we agree about one thing, and that's the importance of student success and really acknowledging the work that everyone's putting into making that possible. So, in terms of trying to stabilize and revamp the system, I did run into a number of pitfalls. Resistance to change was one of them. I was able to make, at least in the first year, some modest changes to the template to make it a little bit more efficient, not as efficient as I would have liked. And the reason for that is you get a call from the chief negotiator asking, what are you doing, right? Because there's fear in changing of the process, and you try to explain that it actually is going to make things a lot easier in the long run. But I also realized as part of this process, you have to pick your battles, right? I was like, it's my first year doing this too, so fine, we'll slow things down. We'll, just have those modest modifications that did make things run more smoothly this year, and then hold off until we can build out particularly more training, because that was just a really big area of deficiency. Because even though we've been using Interfolio for now about 7-8 years, right? It's something that an individual faculty member may only use once or twice a year. And they don't remember. I mean, just given the number of conversations I've had to have about how to move things forward, is that they tend not to remember from year to year. So it is about constant training and working that training into the processes themselves. We ideally would like to move towards a more form-oriented template, but that has become one of the biggest areas of concern. It does get pretty cumbersome uploading the letters, notifying the candidate, and I have to say this is where Interfolio needs to make things a little bit easier for the user who is moving the case forward to the next level, because it's a lot of steps.
Yeah.
It's a lot of steps, and it's hard to explain oftentimes. And usually there's some back end augmentation that needs to happen to make sure that the candidate was notified and everything was moved forward properly.
Right, and some of that is a training issue. Some of that is where I would come into and help and partner with you guys who are talking to the faculty daily. If you do not have client advisory services, you can talk to your account manager about how to get that. But with a client advisory service, you get a dedicated CSM. And what that means is that you have regular meetings with one of us, and you get that one-on-one time to talk about anything that's going on. You also get trainings that will help you to train whatever you need, whether it's training your administrators in the units or departments, whether it's training faculty, whether it's presenting, new things for you guys to learn. So that's one thing that has been very helpful to Jason, is that we've met regularly so that he could run things past me and say, this isn't working, how do I make it work better? This is what we did before, but it's not gonna go well. What can we do? And sometimes it is, that's coming. Like, one of the things I know that we are really excited about is digital signatures in a form. I think once we have that, that'll be an amazing way to use forms, and that'll alleviate some pain points there. So it's one of those things, like, we're gonna set up a system to help you with the workflows so that once we get to that point, it's gonna be a little easier. So if you're using forms already, good job. That's probably already going to help your faculty be used to that, and your committee managers being used to that. But getting those signatures in the forms will be helpful as well. So good stuff coming in. If you guys didn't get a chance to watch the roadmap earlier, definitely review that when we send out the information later next week.
Well, that's something, David's our account manager, he's back there, but David and Joanna probably heard me make comments about the forms and signatures every month since we started this.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, I'm really disappointed that the account manager wasn't mentioned more in this presentation.
Come on up here, David.
Yeah.
All right, so we are actually going to talk about how you actually had your total glow up. Thank you, Cher. to have such an amazing faculty adoption from the start of last year to kind of where we're at now, how you did work with the stakeholders and the decision makers. So take it away.
Well, here's the thing. I did not know there were all of these back-end data analytics in Interfolio, and it was as we were putting this together, Joanna showed me the report. So I had no idea that I had made this much improvement, or I just know that compared to last year, the process was so much better. But then she started sharing some of the data in the data analytics report, and it really was striking about what we were able to accomplish in a first-year cycle. And it really gets me excited in terms of thinking about how it can be refined and improved even more going forward. So part of that has included, as noted in the first part, is making modifications so there was a minor adjustment in the number of steps that a case needed to go through. Part of it was reducing the forms at least by one, with the hope of being able to do a little bit more of that in terms of some of the fields that need to be filled out, because we're still dealing with the basic template that was created in the beginning. So it was as we're moving from the paper process to the digital platform. And so in that transformation, there was still so much that was tied to the paper version. And it doesn't translate very well into Interfolio itself. And I think one of the big pain points and one of the big frustrations for everybody is that it can become unwieldy to use. I found that that's less so with the faculty member uploading their information, but for any case manager, whether that's the chair level, the dean level, now I'm right there in the provost level, so I'm making sure that we're okay
good,
there, yeah. But it's just been a extensive process of trying to refine it to a point where we're creating much more comfortability around this. But as I said, there's still a lot more training that needs to be done.
And efficiency. So, if there's a duplicate step or something that's a little redundant or maybe something that can be combined, you definitely want to think of that and the ramifications of it, but also can we do it? Can we eliminate that step? Because obviously then it's not as long of a process. All right.
Oh. Always listen to your RPT administrator. They do know best. or at the very least, they control the process. And so, as I already said, the biggest pain point along the way has been how much everyone waits to the last minute and how that creates long evenings for me in terms of having to resolve any issues that come up. And I've been very transparent along the way too as part of rebuilding and restoring the relationship over Interfolio and with the union in terms of anytime someone has asked for an out-of-system request, like, there have been times when people have asked, the case has been closed, I would like to add something. Now, the answer is always going to be no, right? That is the answer, but I do like to let the chief negotiator know in case that ever comes up for a grievance. And he's like, yes, you did the exact right thing, But it's again, I think it's important to have that relationship. It's important to have that buy-in, and it's important to make sure that, you know, everyone is following the rules, and so far there haven't been any issues, but it's only been year one, so maybe next year I'll have all these travails to share.
No.
No.
It's
No,
gonna be
not with
smooth.
Joanna.
It's going to be smooth sailing. It's going to be fine.